Right, let's dive straight into this explainer. We're going to unpack the absolutely thrilling history of the pilot watch, and we'll see how human flight literally shaped the very instruments we wear today. You know, there's just something mythically satisfying about wearing a watch that's so deeply associated with adventure and breaking barriers. And today, we're going to explore how aviation is, well, the core reason men even started wearing wristwatches in the first place. So here is our roadmap for today. First, the origins of the pilot watch. 2, world wars and military specs. 3, the jet age and GMTs. 4, the space race moon watches. And finally, 5, the modern mechanical renaissance. Let's get into it. Before we take off, it is fascinating to realize that the essential features of a classic pilot watch weren't about style at all. They were born purely out of the necessity of surviving freezing, unpressurized cockpits. Imagine being up there wearing thick leather flight gloves. That big, bulbous onion crown, that was designed so a gloved hand could actually grip and turn it. The straps had to be exceptionally long and sturdy just to wrap around a heavy flight jacket. And of course, that inner anti-magnetic cage was absolutely crucial to protect the delicate mechanical movement from the massive engines and early cockpit instrumentation. Section 1, Origins of the Pilot Watch. From hot air balloons to the Atlantic Ocean. Let's start at the very beginning of human flight. Picture this, it's 1904, and a Brazilian expat in Paris sparks a total revolution. Alberto Santos-Dumont was an heir to a coffee fortune, and he loved building and flying these early, rudimentary flying machines. But imagine trying to steer one of those things while digging in your heavy coat for a pocket watch. It's a recipe for disaster. That exact problem birthed the Cartier Santos-Dumont. He approached his friend Louis Cartier because he desperately needed to keep both hands on the controls. Cartier's solution was unthinkable for men at the time, a watch specifically meant to be worn on the wrist. And it is wild to see how rapidly horology advanced right alongside aviation. I mean, we go from repurposed pocket watches just strapped to wrists in the World War I trenches, right up to purpose-built, highly technical navigational tools. Soldiers coming home from the First World War made the wristwatch a staple of men's fashion, for sure. But aviation demanded way more than just telling time. It demanded complex calculation. Enter Charles Lindbergh. Famous for his 1927 solo transatlantic flight, he actually worked directly with Longines to create the hour-angle watch. This was a real game changer. It was the first wristwatch with a built-in navigational function for pilots. By combining a rotating outer scale with a movable inner disc, pilots could use it like a miniature wrist calculator. They'd align it with radio signals to precisely determine their longitude, a massive leap forward. Section 2. World Wars and Military Specs. Standardizing the cockpit instrument. Now, as airplanes became these critical military assets in World War II, nations demanded strict, uncompromising standardization. The key takeaway here is that these absolutely were not fashion choices. Every nation issued rigorous, life-saving design specs. Germany established the B-Uhr, or Flieger spec, focusing heavily on stark black dials and anti-magnetic movements. Over in the UK, the Ministry of Defense commissioned the famous Dirty Dozen watches for extreme field reliability. And post-war, the French demanded the highly complex Type 20. 55. That massive number is the millimeter diameter of the 1940 IWC Big Pilot watch. Just to put that into perspective, that is huge for a timepiece. But it was designed that large for a critical reason, to comfortably fit a thick anti-magnetic cage inside and to maximize absolute legibility when you are literally under fire. It featured that classic Flieger aesthetic, you know, the iconic triangle surrounded by 2 dots right at 12 o'clock. That let pilots instantly orient the dial in pitch black, totally chaotic conditions. Then there's the hacking seconds feature. This provided an unbelievable tactical advantage. It's a function where you pull the crown and it instantly stops the seconds hand. This allowed entire Allied squadrons to perfectly synchronize their missions down to the exact second. Knowing the precise moment to drop a payload, take off, or land was critical. That simple mechanism of pulling the crown to freeze time completely changed how military operations were executed. Meanwhile, the French Type 20 specification demanded a flyback chronograph. Why? Because it was absolutely vital for timing a rapid, continuous series of navigational events in the cockpit. With a standard stopwatch, you have to stop, reset, and restart. But with a flyback, a single push stops the seconds hand, returns it to 0, and instantly restarts it. Brands like Breitling built these magnificent tools, turning the wristwatch into a true, multifunctional cockpit instrument. Section 3, the jet age and GMTs, commercial flights, and crossing time zones. Okay, so as peacetime returned, jet turbines allowed massive commercial planes to cross entirely new continents. The golden age of aviation had arrived, but this introduced totally new challenges for watchmakers. The 1952 Breitling Navitimer became the ultimate cockpit calculator for this era. Developed with the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, it featured an incredibly complex-looking E6B circular slide rule bezel. This meant a pilot could figure out fuel consumption rates or do mid-air conversions from miles to kilometers, all without taking their hands off the yoke. But this new kind of long-haul flying created a brand new problem. Flights were taking off from New York and landing in Tokyo. Pan Am actually approached Rolex with a very specific issue. Their pilots were fighting jet lag and needed a watch to instantaneously view the time in 2 different time zones. That request birthed the Rolex GMT Master in 1955, utilizing a revolutionary fourth hand and a rotatable 24-hour bezel. And Rolex creatively solved the problem of tracking day and night in that second time zone with a brilliant 2-tone bezel split. 50% red for daylight hours and 50% blue for nighttime. This created the iconic red and blue Pepsi aesthetic that took on a pop cultural life of its own. I mean, what started as a highly functional tool for Pan Am pilots eventually found its way onto the wrist of Pussy Galore in the James Bond film Goldfinger. It absolutely cemented its status as a lifestyle icon. Section 4. The Space Race Moon Watches, Breaking the Atmosphere. Let's jump into the 1960s. The Cold War pushed aviation out of the atmosphere entirely, forcing watches to endure the brutal, freezing vacuum of space. NASA put watches from multiple brands through a literal gauntlet of extreme temperature and pressure tests. The Omega Speedmaster, which, funnily enough, was originally designed as an auto racing watch, triumphed and became officially issued. But an American-made Bulova lunar pilot also earned its lunar stripes as a privately owned backup when Colonel Dave Scott wore one on the Apollo 15 mission. Now here is an amazing bit of trivia for you. While Neil Armstrong uttered those historic words on live television to millions across the globe, he wasn't wearing his watch. Actually, scratch that. He had left his issued Omega watch behind inside the lunar lander on purpose to serve as a crucial backup timer for the mission. It was Buzz Aldrin who followed Armstrong out onto the lunar surface, actually wearing his Omega Speedmaster, cementing its legacy forever as the true moon watch. Because Aldrin wore it out into the actual lunar dust, the Speedmaster achieved the highest flight of any watch in history. Its performance was so flawless and critical during the Apollo missions that it earned Omega the highly coveted Silver Snoopy Award from NASA for flight safety. Moving into the 70s and 80s, the industry faced the quartz crisis. Inexpensive, high-tech Asian quartz movements seriously threatened traditional Swiss mechanical watchmaking, so pilot watches had to evolve. They pivoted into extreme survival gear. Take Breitling's incredible 1995 emergency watch. It literally contained a built-in radio transmitter antenna that you could pull out to broadcast distress coordinates to search and rescue teams. It proved these watches could still be the literal difference between life and death. Section 5. The Modern Mechanical Renaissance. Heritage meets modern engineering. Which brings us right up to today, the modern mechanical renaissance. Heritage military styling has returned with a vengeance, but now it's backed by unbelievable 21st century engineering. Brands like Vermont and Bell & Ross are pushing the envelope further than ever. Vermont, for instance, literally tests their MB1 watch by strapping it to a crash test dummy on a Martin Baker fighter jet ejection seat and launching it out to guarantee it survives extreme G-forces. The design DNA echoes the 1940s, but the durability, that is entirely modern. So we've covered a century of horological innovation, born from necessity and forged in the skies. From calculating fuel loads to surviving the vacuum of space, these were absolutely essential instruments of survival. Now, think about it. Today, we carry literal supercomputers in our pockets. Yet millions of us still choose to strap these antiquated mechanical survivors to our wrists every single day. So the real question is, are we wearing them merely to tell the time, or are we wearing them to keep the adventurous spirit of human exploration alive?